Okay, so I had a 2017 Tiguan show up, and the customer was having an issue with it stalling intermittently, like just randomly, and then the throttle sometimes wouldn't work. This kind of has been going on, and it came to a head recently when she was leaving work. She went to go pull out of the parking lot, and the throttle stopped working completely. The car shut off. She started back up, and again, the throttle just did not work. The thing would just idle, and then it would start surging and stuff like that. So I went over there and looked at it, and when I got there, it started up, it idled fine. There was a little bit of surge to begin with. We took it for a lap in the parking lot at her work there, and full throttle, you can kind of feel it surging and like losing power. And then I got it back to the parking spot, and all of a sudden the throttle didn't work anymore. So like this is weird. This is really intermittent. I mean, it's got an active symptom, but it's not like a dead throttle completely. It's acting strange. So I scanned it for codes, and I came up with a P1545 throttle valve control malfunction, a P1558 throttle actuator malfunction, a P0300 random multiple misfire, and a P304. P0304. So I mean, normally you look at those and it's like, it's something's clearly wrong with the throttle, like airflow. It's not flowing air properly, I guess. I have no other way to really describe it, but the throttle's clearly not working the way it should. But is it a throttle body issue, or is it a misfire issue? I don't know. So here are the plugs that came out of it. It's got 114K on the clock. The plugs are pretty roached. I mean, they're nasty. I mean, they need to be replaced, and they're the original plugs. These are only a 40,000 mile plug, so it's well overdue for the plugs to begin with. But don't tell your client like that is the problem. I mean, that's a problem. Like, it's not the problem. I'm pretty sure it's misfiring because the throttle's not doing its job, and it's not getting correct signal, and it starts messing with the air fuel ratio, and then suddenly, boom, you got misfires. So the next logical thing I wanted to do is I pulled the tube off of the throttle body, and this throttle body is inverted, it's vertical, and the throttle plate points towards the ground. And what we're looking in there for is excessive carbon buildup, oil, so on and so forth. The throttle looked good. There was nothing that was standing out like, ooh, that's our problem. So I wanted to look at the mass airflow sensor to see if it looked nasty, and just kind of check everything out that's like involved with like the air delivery system. And it turns out everything seems to be good. So at that point I was like, we got to smoke test this thing just to make sure there's not some weird vacuum leak that I can't hear, or something along those lines. Because we've seen this before where, sometimes the charge piping for the turbo will come off of it. There was nothing obvious there. Smoke machine really didn't show much in the vacuum leak department. But when I ran the smoke machine on the intake, that's where we found something really interesting. So it took a while for it to do it, probably 2 or 3 minutes before I could see the smoke. But down below the air box, it was starting to leak smoke. And then like after a while, it would leak smoke like heavily. So I'm like, whoa, there's an issue here. And I was thinking, well, maybe it's something, I can't see, maybe because the air box isn't necessarily completely waterproof tight because it has to have an air inlet. So I'm like, maybe it's coming out of like an air inlet that I just can't see. No, it wasn't. It's leaking out of the intercooler, but it's not leaking anywhere near the charge piping or anything like that. So we took the air cleaner off it. We took the electric fans out of it, and then I had to take the front bumper off of it, and I had to take the radiator out of it. And that was all to find this. All right, here's our intercooler. Looks great, doesn't it? Except for all this oil over here. Oh wait, hey, what's this? Hey, look, it's the mount. And it looks like someone broke it once upon a time and tried to epoxy it back on. So here's the hole in the intercooler, and you can see this is where our smoke was coming from. And I have a theory here of what happened. I'll bet my paycheck that someone had no idea how the intercooler came out. They may have been doing body work, maybe they replaced the radiator, but someone was in here clearly messing around with it. And again, I'm willing to bet they didn't know how the thing came out. So this would be where you look at the intercooler if you're looking from the back of the vehicle forward. So the front of the vehicle is on this side, that's where the air draws through, and then it comes out this side, and that's where it radiates the heat off of it as it's pumping the air through the intercooler. So we come to the front side here, and you see that little hole right there? That's a bolt. And that bolt runs right through here. You can see this little hole right here. There's a bolt right there, and that is what the mount bolts to. To conclude, I'm willing to bet they couldn't figure out how to get that out, and they were prying and prying and prying, trying to get the intercooler out of the way, and that is what they did. Is they pried on it long enough where it snapped, and that was all she wrote. Because it looks like it may, like this may, you know, unlatch and the cooler kind of pulls out from there. No, 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 no. It bolts right to the front subframe. And without, you know, taking the bumper off, without taking the radiator out, without taking the cooling fans off, you were never going to find this leak. You could see smoke, but you weren't going to see where the hell the smoke was coming from. But this is all my main gripe with the industry. It's like, there are a lot of people that do a good job in this industry. There's a lot of people that do a poor job in this industry. But I think there's a lot of people that have good intentions and have the potential to be a really good technician, but they're not given the chance to because of the way most of these shops operate. Most of these shops are just, you know, turn and burn, you know, do as much work as fast as humanly possible and get the car out. And that creates the shop more money. And then if the tech is on some sort of incentive-based pay or flat rate, that's what's going to cause him to, you know, cut corners or not take a minute to figure things out, especially a young guy that's anxious and trying to do a good job, and he doesn't have anyone to, you know, rely on. A, B, his paycheck depends on how fast he works and how quickly the job gets out. And there's a huge stigma with like a lot of young guys, but just because, you know, typical shop behavior, you know, given the younger guy or whomever, just, you know, a lot of razzing and, you know, the constant gay jokes and stuff like that. I mean, I'm all for it. I've been in the industry long enough. I get it. But at the same time, it's like, you got to do a good job. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, why? This is a failure across the board for me. It's like, yes, you broke it. It's okay. Like, good service advisor, good manager, they can play with that with the client. Like, hey, you know, we were doing this and we found this, or hey, this broke on the way out. It's old, it's brittle, it broke. You know, we'll replace it. So why on earth, whomever was working on this thing, maybe it was a DIY guy that was like, I'm not fixing this thing, I'm trading it in. Could have been it. So this story could be just null and void. Who cares? But like, I see this so many times, just dumb crap like this, where it's like the tech worked harder, or whoever was working on it worked harder to try to epoxy that thing in place and send it out the door, as opposed to, you know, buying like, how much does the intercooler cost? Like $150, $300? Like, for as much work as it takes to get to that intercooler, it's like, hey, we'd be really stupid not to replace this thing because I broke it anyway and it should be replaced. Like, where was the disconnect? Like, I don't ever try to badmouth people, but man, it's more and more difficult to, you know, hold a positive attitude and you know, be polite when, you know, you constantly see stuff like this roll into your shop. Like, if I found like one of my techs did something like this, he'd be eating that. Like, no, like, you didn't even come and tell me that you broke this thing, you put it back together and you shipped it out the door. Like, not my problem. Shop's gonna eat that cost. Like, whether or not, like, if my tech is flat rate or whatever it is, like, you're going to pay for it somehow. Like, whether or not you're gonna work, you know, you're gonna work for free, or, you know, something, you're paying for it. Like, I get that stuff happens, but you can't ship it out the door like that. It makes you look stupid. But a lot of people have that mentality of, you know, oh, I won't see this car again, or something like that. Which very well could be, because it could have been like a trade-in deal or something along those lines, where it's like, just put together, we got to put on the lot, who cares? It's just mind-boggling how much of this stuff I see on a daily basis. It's been a long day, so what do you think? How would you approach this situation here? Because this wasn't done at this shop at all. This was done somewhere else. I told the client, what the deal was. And it was clearly epoxied back together. Was this something that, you guys see often, like just hack together stuff coming to your shop from other places? Or is it just this area? Let me know where you guys are at, and what kind of stuff you guys see on a daily basis that's like, well, how did this happen?